The Pacific sky in 1944 was alive with thunder, not storm clouds, but the roar of B-29 superfortresses cutting across the horizon. These bombers were the most advanced aircraft of the war, capable of flying thousands of miles with massive payloads. Each plane carried men who knew every mission could be their last. The United States had invested heavily in these bombers, hoping to cripple Japan's war-making capacity and bring the conflict to an earlier end. Yet for crews flying from distant bases in India, China, and the Mariana Islands, every flight was perilous. Enemy fighters swarmed, anti-aircraft fire shredded the skies, and mechanical failures could end the mission instantly. Some planes returned home, riddled with holes, engines smoking, wings bent. Others vanished without a trace, leaving only wreckage and unanswered questions. The B-29 program itself was a monumental undertaking. Tens of thousands of men worked tirelessly to build, test, and maintain these massive bombers. Every mission required meticulous planning, calculating fuel loads, plotting flight paths over enemy territory, and coordinating with dozens of aircraft. For the airmen, survival depended not just on skill, but on the aircraft itself. Japanese forces had learned to anticipate American raids, deploying advanced radar, searchlights, and fighter squadrons to intercept bombers. Flying over the Pacific was a high-stakes game, and the sky itself could become an enemy. For those who were shot down, the world below was terrifying and unfamiliar. Villages, rice fields, and bombed-out city blocks stretched beneath them, scarred by previous attacks. Civilians, grieving and enraged, often saw these men as symbols of the destruction that had shattered their lives. Crowds sometimes gathered immediately, shouting and crying, trying to reach the airmen before soldiers could intervene. Some were beaten, dragged through streets, or interrogated harshly. A few officers protected prisoners, but such acts were rare. Every capture was unpredictable. Every fate hung by a thread. Landing in enemy territory was only the beginning. One young airman remembered the moment he hit the ground. The smoke from the city burned my eyes. I was tangled in my parachute. I had no idea where to run or who to trust. All I could hear was shouting, gunfire, and screaming civilians. Others landed in rice paddies, sinking into mud, or in forests, disoriented and alone. Some survived initial injuries, broken bones, burns, or deep cuts, only to face the terror of capture. For many, the first hours were a fight to survive not just from soldiers, but from the environment itself, sharp debris, flooded fields, or dangerous terrain. Some airmen tried to evade capture for hours or even days. They hid in forests, moved through destroyed villages at night, or attempted to signal friendly forces. One pilot remembered crawling across rubble-strewn streets, heart pounding, listening to the shouts of Japanese soldiers in the distance. Fear was constant, and even minor missteps could mean death. Yet each moment of survival required courage, ingenuity, and relentless hope. The first days of captivity were cruel. Tiny cells, often made of wood, offered barely enough room to sit or lie down. Food and water were almost non-existent, and the sounds from outside, cries, shouting, destruction, filled the air. Some prisoners were forced to stand for hours or moved between temporary holding areas with no explanation. Disease spread quickly in these cramped spaces. One airman recalled, "I couldn't tell night from day. The fear of the unknown was worse than any injury. Every sound made me jump, wondering if this would be my last moment." Then came the Kenpatai, Japan's feared military police. Their interrogations were designed to break both body and spirit. Blindfolded, tied, and threatened, prisoners were questioned relentlessly about flight routes, bombing targets, and the locations of American bases. Many did not know the answers, but that did not matter. Interrogations sometimes took place near ruins still smoldering from raids, a psychological tactic intended to create despair. Another survivor said, "Even if you stayed silent, they found ways to make you doubt yourself. You didn't just fear dying, you feared your mind giving in." Treatment varied across Japan. In some regions, officers adhered more closely to military rules. But in cities devastated by raids, anger and grief often dictated treatment. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, and Fukuoka had suffered greatly, and prisoners in these regions often faced extreme hostility. One airman recounted being dragged through streets where civilians hurled insults and stones, blaming him for the destruction of their homes. Others were confined in temporary shelters with dozens of prisoners packed together, creating disease and exhaustion almost instantly. The Fukuoka incident stands out as one of the darkest chapters. After repeated raids destroyed large parts of the city, prisoners were taken to military facilities where fear and desperation turned lethal. Some were executed in acts of retaliation. Others were forced to perform manual labor under brutal conditions, with little to eat, and enduring relentless punishment. These events later became part of post-war trials, showing the extreme consequences of civilian anger and desperation in war. Yet even in darkness, small acts of humanity survived. Some Japanese officers treated prisoners with respect. Civilians risked punishment to provide food, water, or care. An elderly farmer secretly tended to a wounded airman for hours while soldiers searched nearby. Another prisoner recalled a villager quietly leaving rice balls at the edge of a camp fence. Small gestures of kindness became lifelines, reminders that even in bleak circumstances, humanity could persist. After initial capture, many airmen were transported to larger POW camps, Omori, Ofuna, and Tokyo Military Prison. The journeys were grueling. Men were packed tightly into transport vehicles for hours or even days, with minimal food or water. Disease was a constant threat. Exhaustion, hunger, and fear made each mile seem unbearable. One airman said, "We were crammed together like cargo. I had no idea if I would survive the trip to the camp." Inside the camps, life was harsh but slightly more predictable. Food was minimal, usually just rice and thin soup. Disease spread quickly, nights were cold, and guards enforced strict rules with little tolerance. Yet prisoners adapted. They shared food, helped each other, and devised ways to communicate secretly. Small acts, hiding a blanket, sharing water, or exchanging whispered messages, became essential for survival. Daily life required both physical and mental endurance. Airmen exercised when possible, tried to maintain hygiene, and created small routines to keep morale. One kept a diary, noting each sunrise, every interaction, and even minor details, simply to maintain a sense of time and control. Psychological resilience became as important as physical strength. Storytelling, quiet songs, and small acts of kindness helped maintain hope. There were moments of tension and suspense. Rumors of approaching transfers or bombings kept prisoners on edge. Occasionally, airmen attempted small acts of defiance, smuggling food, repairing shoes for the sick, or teaching English to sympathetic civilians. These tiny gestures became acts of agency in a world designed to strip it away. Prisoners also endured moments of introspection. Many wrote secret letters they could never send, spoke to memories of home, or imagined returning to loved ones. These private rituals kept hope alive. Some airmen formed bonds across different ranks, sharing stories and teaching each other skills to survive. Others developed quiet routines, walking laps in a yard, marking days on walls, or creating small games to pass the time. Occasionally, prisoners discovered fleeting moments of relief or humor. A card game, a joke whispered between friends, or a shared memory from home could temporarily lift spirits. One airman recalled sneaking a small potato from a garden to cook with a friend, feeling like he had regained a piece of his humanity. These moments, though small, mattered immensely. Some airmen also reflected on the moral complexities of war, the fear, the anger, and the acts of kindness that coexisted in such a brutal environment. They witnessed the full spectrum of human behavior, from cruelty to compassion. These lessons, learned at great cost, would stay with them for life. From the moment they fell from the sky to the moment they entered the shadowed gates of POW camps, these airmen faced cruelty, fear, and despair, but also rare sparks of kindness and resilience. Their survival was not merely physical, it was a testament to courage, hope, and human endurance. In the next chapter, we will go deeper inside the camps, uncovering how prisoners sustained themselves, how they communicated despite strict restrictions, and how they endured until liberation in 1945. Their journey is far from over, and history is still discovering the full measure of their courage.